Hi everyone, in this series of videos we're going to have a go at modelling this scene along with this coffee maker. So there's 11 parts in total. So the first 9 are all about the modelling of, first of all, the coffee maker, then we'll look at some smaller assets like our coffee cups, do some cloth simulations to make like a tablecloth and that sort of thing, before we then move on to doing the texturing, lighting and rendering. So our final scene is going to end up looking something like this. So all the resources that you need to follow along. So I've got all the reference images and all the decals that I've created. I've put on a link in the description of each of the videos. So if you need any of them, make sure you go to those. If you're stuck in any part, please leave a comment on that video or email me at cgwithsimon@outlook.com and I'll get back to you and hopefully you enjoy. Okay, so as we start to build our scene, I'm going to start to make a couple more assets to go along with it. I'm going to get rid of the reference images for our coffee maker because we're done with that now. So I'm going to Shift A, empty, and grab a cube and just scale that like this, and then I select everything and then deselect and then reselect the empty, Control P, deparent and keep transforms, because then that way when I need to move stuff around I can just grab the empty and I can move it around that way. So let's start with like a coffee cup. So we're going to go to Shift A to add a reference image, go to image and reference. I'm going to grab this cup here. Now it doesn't matter what size to begin with because we'll just scale it down to the size of our actual coffee maker. So at the minute, very bright, so come to the right hand side. Let's turn the opacity down to something like 0.2. And what we're going to do is we're going to Shift A, mesh, and we're going to start with a UV sphere. GX to bring it over. Shift Z to go into X-ray mode and just drag it down to make it a bit smaller. Like that. So let's grab these top faces here and delete them like that. So we've already got what's starting to look like a coffee cup. So we then want to do our handle. So to do that, what I'm going to do is Shift A, mesh, and I'm going to grab a cube. I'm going to scale that down. Make this a bit bigger. That sort of thing. Okay, so bring this into position. Tab to go to edit mode, and just slowly try and match up the reference image as much as I can do. Something like that to begin with. So then I'm just going to grab these 4 vertices, hit E to extrude, and then each time I extrude it, just going to keep matching reference images, E to extrude, and then just keep dragging my way around. So it's not a particularly complex model. There's a few ways of doing it, but I want it to look quite nice. I want it to look as realistic as we can do. So I'm actually going to join the handle to the cup as well. Sometimes if it's not going to be a really like in focus model, you wouldn't necessarily need to make sure that all the parts are properly joined, but in this instance I am going to make sure that they are. I'm only making sure I've got edges when the curve becomes a bit more extreme. I need to make sure that it matches up a bit better. So along here, you see I'm going to need another one. So Control R here, and then I can grab that into position like that. And then what we can do is let's drag that into position. We'll do one more like that. So we've got a rough shape of our handle. That's very fat at the minute. So S, Y, I'm going to drag that and make that a little bit skinnier like that. So what we do want to do is join those together by selecting both and go Control J. And then what we want to do is select the coffee cup. I'm going to rotate this so that the handle sits in the middle, those faces like that. Okay, so I'm then going to get rid of this edge loop here, right click and dissolve edge like that. And then what we're going to do is grab these and then merge those together. So actually let's take that, rather than delete it, let's bring it up a little bit. Let's do that instead. Like that. I'm going to do a similar sort of thing at the bottom. Like that. Now we want to get rid of the face where they're joined, which would be that one there, and then that one there, like that. So you already see that if I were to do a generate and subdivision surface, it's starting to look pretty good. So before we do anything else on that, what I'm just going to do is let's F to fill, do I to inset, a bit thicker, something like that. E to bring down, S to scale that in, and then we can control B. Like that, so we got a nice character to our cup. Let's add some edge level to our edges up here. Something like that. And then we just want to give a bevel to this outside edge along here. Like that, and then we do Control B, bevel. Let's try 10, see how it looks first. Generate, subdivision surface, shade smooth. So actually that's pretty good, so we'll leave that as that is. Then what we're going to do is come to the bottom. Let's grab those bits, E to bring down, S, Z to scale flat, GZ to bring it up a little bit more. And then we'll delete those faces, F to fill, I to bring that in a little bit, E, Z just to make that little lip along there. Add a slight bevel to these edges. Like that, and I feel like I've made this corner a little bit too sharp. So we're going to dissolve those edges like that, and then re-bevel, make it a little bit softer, like that. So let's have a look, see how that looks. Okay, pretty happy with that as our cup. Let's shade flat, and then let's add our seams everywhere. right click and mark seam. And there we have our cut unwrapped, like that. Give that a save. And then we can scale that down, set the origin to geometry so we can scale it down to that sort of size. There you go, something. Something like that. Okay, so I'm going to give that a quick save. Okay, so now that we've got one of our coffee cups, I'm going to take it, Shift D to duplicate, and just come to the top. Make sure it sits on the top of our machine. Duplicate. I'm sort of like randomly rotating it a little bit, just so it doesn't all look too uniform. And then we'll do the same thing, Shift D, duplicate, bring it over there. Like that. Just want to make sure that they are touching our machine. I'm going to grab all these, Shift D, Z to bring up a little bit, like that. And then same thing, I'm going to rotate it just so they're not completely the same. Like that sort of thing. Now I'm going to give this a save because it does take a little bit of trial and error getting this next bit right. So we could try and place these properly into the cup, but it wouldn't look very realistic. So I'm going to bring this up so it's making sure that they're not currently clipping, because that's not what we want. So we just want to make sure we've not got the handle clipping through, like that. So what we're going to do is select the ones that want to stay still, go to rigid body and change that to passive. Change the shape to the mesh there, and we'll try something like 3. We might need a bit more tweaking as we go. One, and the one you want to move, rigid body, and we'll change that to, we'll keep that as active, sorry. Keep that as mesh. Try something like 3. We'll do the same on all of these. So the one you want to keep still, keep it as passive, or change it to passive, mesh, like that. The one you want to move, keep it as active, mesh. And this margin will be a bit of tweaking, a bit of trial and error depending on the reaction you get. So active is fine. We're going to put that as mesh. Make sure to change it to the mesh. It has to be the mesh of the cup itself. Okay, we'll just make sure that these have all got, that one to be passive. That one to be active. Like that, I'm going to give this a save. And then what we're going to do is make sure our timeline is at the beginning. Press play. And you see that they are now dropping in. Now, what we might need to do is on that, we had our margin as 3. Maybe we put that to 2 and see if that is a bit better. Let's change that to 2. Okay, so again, let's give this a save. Let's see how this goes. I'm going to take this one. Rotate around the other way a little bit. Give that another go. So you see there, our cups are now dropping in, giving a more realistic effect, of it being stored in the cup rather than just trying to place it and doing a bad job. Let's give that a save. I'm going to try it one more time, but let's try it with 1. 1 might be too little there, so we'll try 1 and see, but we've got 2 saved, so we'll see. Okay, let's see. So that actually does work quite a bit better. So you see here, it just makes it seem like they've dropped in to place a bit better. So you can keep playing the simulation until you get something you're happy with. We don't want clipping, so let's come back a little bit until we're happy. Oh, these two are too close to the similar positions. Let's rotate this a little bit. I'm going to press play one more time. Like that. So there we have our simulation that makes it looks like our cups are stacked on top of each other. I'm going to give that a save. Now to make sure they stay in place, what we need to make sure we do now is Control A, and we need to go to Visual Transforms. So it applies Visual Transforms. It applies our simulation permanently. Because if you were to not do that and then close Blender and then reopen it again, they would revert back to where they were originally. So now if I do a simulation, come back to where it was, convert to mesh. Okay, so I'm going to give this a save. So once we've done that, all we need to do now is we can just select our cups and just remove the simulation, get rid of the rigid bodies. Like that. So we've now got our cups that are now stacked. And just to make it all in line, I'm going to move that for a second. I'm going to go to Shift A, mesh, and grab, not mesh, sorry, I'm going to go to empty, grab a cube, bring this into position. Like that. Deselect the empty, Control P to grab it. And now if I grab that, I've now got that in position. So now GZ, bring that back up. We've now got our cups stacked on top of our coffee maker. We've got one cup there. We can at any point if we want to move them, but we run the simulation, which is exactly what we want. We're going to give that a save. We've also already unwrapped everything. So we're good with that. So we'll stop there. And then in the next video, we'll start to build up the rest of our scene, but we got most of the heavy lifting done. So I hope you enjoy following along. And you got any questions, leave a comment down below or email me at cgwithsimon@outlook.com.